What's going on, guys and girls? Static here, and welcome back to Black Aperture, where I've been extremely busy over the last couple of days. You might be able to see just down there a few new little experiments that I've been doing. If you follow me on Facebook, you've probably heard about what's going on down there. I won't get into too much detail with that today because the project's still a little bit unfinished, and I don't want to give anything away just yet, aside from what I've already given away on Facebook, of course. As you can see over here, I've redesigned the pattern that I had for the floor idea. I got to thinking what other blocks were non-spawnable, and straight away I thought of pistons. And the great thing about pistons, as you can see here, is they've got multiple surfaces that you can use. For example, here we've used the bottom of the piston, here we've used the top of the piston, and here we've used a side-on piston to give what I think is quite a cool looking pattern. I think this is a lot easier on the eyes than the ice and bedrock combination. A lot of people were complaining about the bedrock in the design, so I think this is a much sleeker version of the design. Goes well with the wall as well. Goes well with the vision that I've got in my head for the Black Aperture building above ground. So I think this is probably what we're going to go with as the floor for Black Aperture, or the surface for Black Aperture, I should say. The only reason I haven't expanded it out yet for the entire surface is I'm just trying it on for now, just seeing how it looks. Every time I come onto the server with fresh eyes, I sort of have a look at the thing and try and weigh it up, see whether I like it or not. One issue with this design, the old design with the ice had the issue that once I got too close to the wall here, the ice started melting. Obviously I don't have that issue, but as you can see, I've got the redstone lamps in the surface of the pattern, and I think that'll be cool for lighting up the entire surface of Black Aperture. But those need to be powered somehow, and that means that these pistons also get powered. Now, for most of them, it's not really an issue, but when you get to here, for example, like where this piston is, I think it's this one, or wait, here's a good example, I think. No. Alright, I'll find one eventually. This one here, okay. So this one here is facing this way. As you can see, there's less than 16 blocks from that piston to the side here. And that piston is also right next to one of these redstone lamps, which I'm powering. No matter how I power that redstone lamp, that's always going to power this piston here, which will cause it to extend, which will shift the entire pattern and screw it up for me. Now, the only way that I've managed to, or at the moment, to get these to not push the whole pattern along or not extend is by simply putting extended pistons here and then powering this redstone lamp, and then that means that this piston can't push forward since pistons can't push extended pistons. If that makes sense at all. I know I used the word piston about 100 times then, but so yeah, there's a little bit of difficulty with this design. I'm not really sure what's going to happen if I use MC Edit to copy paste this design across the entire surface of Black Aperture. I'm not sure if those pistons are going to then update and destroy things, or mean that I've got to, redo the entire border and the parts of the pattern that screw up, or if using MC Edit like that will just copy and paste just the way that the pistons are here, and thus turn them into like a bud mechanism kind of thing, stop them from extending. I'm hoping it's the latter, but once I've decided whether or not I'm completely happy with this design, I guess I'll just jump in head first and see what happens. Now, to see the rest of the work that I've done on Black Aperture since the last episode, we can go over to this little viewing hole that I've set up really quickly. I worked on, as I was mentioning, as I said I was going to in the last episode, I worked on expanding the core, and I've worked on wrapping those hallways around where the core will be. And I think it looks really good, as you can see down here. One of the things I'm trying to achieve with Black Aperture, which is something that I think is kind of unique, that not many people have done, but that's going to be quite a challenge, is I want to, even though most of this building is going to be underground, I still want to have the building look good from the outside, even though it's underground. So that's just an idea that I've been toying around with. I think that'll look pretty awesome. But now I'll show you the new hallway designs, or not really the new hallway designs, I sort of carried the same hallway design around, but as I've said, I've carried them around the entire, oops, I should probably get inside the wiring, there we go. I've carried them around the corners. Get up there, come on. There we go. Now, I have been getting these weird lighting glitches, especially when I use MC Edit to copy and paste things. But yeah, so as you can see, this hallway loops all the way around that way and all the way around that way. The hallways aren't really all that long, but they're not really going to need to be. These are just going to lead to the main areas which are going to be surrounding the core. Now, another thing that you've probably already noticed is these little green patches in the walls. When I was showing off the hallway design that I've got here and mentioning about the different levels, one thing people suggested is that I should have something that distinguishes each of the levels from each other. So, for example, at the moment we're on the biology level, and as you can see I've got an emerald block in there simply because it's green, and you associate the color green with life, and so I thought that would be perfect for biology. I quite like these little patterns. I mean, this one does take a fair gouge out of the wall there, which kind of looks a little bit strange, but I actually quite like it, especially like this design in the corner here where you've got this little patch of green here, this little patch of green there, and one there as well. I'm really a big fan of that. And the cool thing about this design as well is that on some floors, like for example, this is the biology floor at the moment, as you already know, but not only biology labs are going to be on this level. For example, labs that involve engineering and biology, but mostly biology as opposed to mostly engineering, will be on this level here, but will be like a combined biology and engineering lab. I hope that kind of makes sense, guys. But what I can do is, for example, if this wing of the biology level was partially dedicated to engineering as well, we could then, let's get just a gold block for now, because the color for engineering is going to be yellow. At this stage anyway. We could simply do that. So there, this little level indicator thing here shows that on this side of the room we've got engineering and biology, and we could always just switch those around depending on which one is the prominent science, I guess, or school for this level. So for example, if this was mostly biology and partly engineering, we could have it like this, or if it was mostly engineering, partly biology, obviously we could switch it around. I've tried to steer away from using just colored wall blocks for these corners, partially because I don't like the texture of the wall blocks, and I know people have told me in the last episode that if I don't like the texture I should change it. Problem is that I'm not really the most artistic guy going around, and so I'm sort of worried about botching up the textures unless I know exactly what I'm doing. Like with these iron blocks, I know that I wanted to have the old iron texture, so I could quite easily just copy paste that across. I know with the pistons, like how I wanted to do them, I wanted to have the red warning sign, I guess, for the sticky pistons, and just the white for the normal pistons, just so that they blended in with the walls. So with things like that, where I've got a clear vision of what I want with the texture, I know, or I don't really worry about messing around with things. But for textures like the wall block, where I don't have a clear vision, I'd rather steer away from messing with those kinds of things. So yeah, I've tried to go with blocks other than the wool blocks. So in this case, I've got the emerald blocks. I did toy around with the idea of, if I can find some, of maybe using leaves, simply because it's biology. The leaves are like a living sort of thing. But I don't like how the pattern there is like all patchy. I like with the emerald blocks how it's like a solid green. And also, this seems kind of dark to me. I mean, we could probably chuck some torches. What do we do? We'll just chuck one there for now, just to test, just to lighten it up a little bit. But you can see it's still pretty dark, especially compared to the emerald block that we had there. So I will chuck that one back for now. And over here as well. Okay, and so we've got, as I said, emerald block on this level here, green for biology. On this level here we have, as you can see, the redstone lamps. Now, I quite like these because they fit with the whole idea of the engineering level. They're something they'll be using quite a bit in most of my machines. And of course they have the color of yellow, which if you haven't noticed already, we've got green up there, yellow down there, and red. Where's red? Where is red? There's red. So red down the bottom, which is kind of like a traffic light, although I think traffic lights might be the other way around. Can't quite remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so traffic light kind of colors. I was tossing up the idea of maybe using blue for engineering, but couldn't think of a logical reason why I would use that color. I mean, red means danger, so that's sort of a no-brainer for weaponology. Green is associated with, life, so that's a no-brainer for biology. But engineering was somewhere sort of in the middle. I mean, the only other color I could think of aside from yellow, like the yellow of the redstone lamps, would be red for redstone, but I'm already using that on the weaponology level. So yeah, that's not 100% sure on those redstone lamps. I think it might be a little bit of overkill since there's lamps in the floor and the roof as well, but I'll try that on for size for a little while, see what I think. And now, like I said, on this level, weaponology, we've got red. And I've used TNT in the corners at the moment, simply because I was trying to steer away from wall blocks, and they were really the only proper red blocks. I mean, I could use netherrack, but the texture for netherrack's pretty ugly. Again, I don't really have a clear vision of how I'd want to change the color of netherrack. Nether bricks are kind of red, but wherever they are, but they're too dark, I think. And yeah, that doesn't really leave me with a whole lot aside from the wall blocks and TNT. So this is the one level, because I'm not quite sure whether I like the white stripe on the top and bottom. So this is the one level where I'm considering maybe using the wall blocks. Oops. That's what we want. But yeah, so I'm not 100% decided. I mean, the wall blocks do look quite good. I think they actually look better than the TNT, even though the TNT's more of a reddy red. And I don't really like this mottled texture of the red wool. But yeah, not sure. Let me know what you guys think on that one, TNT or red wool. And if red wool and you've got suggestions for how to modify the texture, feel free to send them through in video responses or private messages or comments, or however you feel like contacting me. Now, the next thing that I wanted to show you guys that I've been working on is the potions lab. As you can see, I'm toying with another idea here of how I can differentiate the different floors and the different wings. So if you hear me talking about wings, guys, my plan is that there'll be a bunch of labs on each side of the core that sort of line up directly with the hallways. So there'll be a big block of labs that go off this side here. There'll be sort of nothing, kind of, or maybe even shared area in the corners, and then a whole set of labs off to the side here as well. So some of the wings are going to be more devoted to engineering. So for example, on the engineering level, you might be able to access a wing that extends all the way down to this level here, the weaponology level, and all the way up to the biology level. But then that wing, whichever wing that is, I'm inside so I can't really tell the direction, but let's say that's west. So the west wing would then be the engineering wing, even if we're on the weaponology level. So I know it's a little bit hard to understand what I'm talking about without seeing things in action, guys, but hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Now, this is another thing that I wanted to address really quickly as well. Actually, that needs a half slab, doesn't it? I will be changing these to the corner stairs, and I have tried out the corner stairs in the corners. I did play the snapshots for a little while and mess around with the designs, and the corner stairs look beautiful. It's just chalk and cheese when compared to the old half slab or full block method. Looks so much better. And with that being said, in the potions lab, I want you to keep in mind that this was actually designed in the snapshot, so it might look a little bit funky at the moment. But yeah, keep that in mind, guys. I will be replacing some of the stairs and stuff in there with corner stairs. And back to my old train of thought, these little red bits of wool here are essentially saying that this is a weaponology level. And so if this was part engineering as well, again, I could do something like that, or if that doesn't look quite as good, I could do something like that. So we know it's part weaponology and part engineering, or whatever. I quite like it. I think it adds a nice element to these already sexy doors. But yeah, so on to the potions lab. So this is what I've done so far, guys. And as you can see, it's a lot different than my usual style of building. I've tried to add a lot of curves into the room. I still need to probably add some curves down the bottom here so that it gradually curves up the wall and then curves back around. And the room is very circular as well. Now, it's very difficult for me to try and design something like that since I'm usually a real stickler for symmetry. However, this room is very symmetrically unsymmetrical, if that makes sense at all. If you split the room down the middle, it's almost a perfect copy on the other side. So even though the room is like rounded and doesn't really look all that symmetrical, it is. So it kind of caters to my OCD, as well as trying to make the room look nice. Now, as you can see, I haven't filled in our little test chambers yet. All I've done is start to build them. As you can see, I've still got a little bit of work to do around the tops. The reason is I essentially just made this room to look the way that I wanted it to, and then I'll work on the technical aspects between other projects. So if I get sick of something I'm doing upstairs, I can always come down here and work on the test chambers or the potion ingredient dispensary tower that we're going to have up there, or whatever, or like the workbench down here. I want to have a lot of things in this workbench, like I don't know, a hidden water source, for example. So have this wood block get pulled down and then pulled away, and then have water appear, or pulled down twice. So have it just a double extender, and have it form an infinite spring. Stuff like that, just really cool stuff hidden in the desk, just to make it a little bit more sciencey. And yeah, so I want to work on that kind of stuff off camera and between projects. Other than that, and I've got to fix this lighting up here. I don't know why that's all off, but I'll get to that later on. I think what I was sort of thinking is I might put in like a light switch up the back here and have that light up the redstone lamps in a circle, just for another cool kind of effect. And as you can see over here, I've got like a little bit of a role-playing kind of element. We've got upstairs our lab geeks. If I can fly up here. And our lab geeks have their little observation chamber where they can see what we're doing, make sure we're going or abiding by Black Aperture's ethics, which, as we mentioned in the last episode, are few and far between. And they got a little computer here where they can plug in their details with a nice sandstone stair and the white signs around it. I think that looks really sexy. Probably the best combination for a chair in Minecraft that I've seen so far. And as you can see, I've utilized the sidewood logs as well, because I think that makes the desk look a lot better. He's kind of rude, jumping up all over the furniture. And of course, we've got a little mouse here. Doesn't do anything, obviously, but I think it's just a cool little effect, especially if you're down in the potions lab here and looking up from the desk. You can see these guys walking around, looking at the computer screen, occasionally walking up to each other, talking to each other. Sometimes all four will be in this room having like a powwow, and other times one of them will be off on his own, doing his own little thing. So very cool the way that the lab geeks up here interact with each other. And I've done that by making this little pathway between the two rooms, which extends over the main test chamber, which I'm thinking I might... I don't have any close glass that I can just third mouse button on, but I'm thinking of perhaps somehow, or maybe it'd be sort of more like that, and having sort of a view down into the main test subject chamber, something like that. I don't know. But I just like the idea of having this observation deck up here where you can sort of keep an eye on everything. And And I do plan on eventually, now that you've seen all of this, I can get out of here. I do plan on eventually having some sort of a way that you can actually get up there from down here. So I don't know whether it'll be like a secret door that opens up here. So maybe I can, let's just try something really quickly. Shall we? What I want to do is I need some sticky pistons. And we'll place one there. Oh, this is going to be a pain. Should have placed it from the bottom up instead of the top down. We'll do that. And one on top. And what do we need? We need redstone and a lever. I think that's all we'll need, really. And so we can then bring this... I mean, this is really, really, really rough just to see what it'll look like. So obviously this wiring would all be underground in the finished product so that you wouldn't be able to see any of it and it wouldn't interfere with the room. That's going to interfere with the wiring. So it's that and that. Oops. So just like so, and then chuck ourselves a lever on there. That's not working quite the way I planned it, but you know, something. That's not at all how I planned it. What I was thinking is have two pistons here to pull back these blocks and two pistons here to pull back these blocks, and then have like another diagonal room to some sort of a diagonal elevator up the back. Just a thought. The only problem is that to do that, because if you look here with the glass, there's 3 points on the glass, meaning that I'd have to sort of just do maybe a 1. Although that might not look too bad actually. I'm just thinking symmetry wise, but it's kind of a weird shape because down here there's the 4 points, which would make that symmetrical. And then up on top, there's the 3 points, which would make that symmetrical. So, not really sure what I want to do there. I could always do that, but I don't know. Personally, oops. Fly. Ah! Oh, come on. Ah, damn it. So, even in a creative world, you can still die just from pure negligence, really. But at least we have like a nice large drop all the way down, which is always good fun. I love looking at the elevator in free fall. Makes it that much more impressive, I think. So we'll fly back around to our potions lab and find out where that hole is and plug that back up, because that is dangerous. That is a safety hazard. There we go. So yeah, not sure what I'm going to do with, like, in terms of these doors. And now I've got a villager stuck in there, or a lab geek I should say. We'll slaughter him and I'll just replace him later on. Whoops, I'm destroying things left, right and center. And apparently lab geek is invincible. Beautiful. Alright, well, I'll figure that out between now and the next episode. Obviously. But yeah guys, so that's what I've done so far. As I've mentioned, I plan on putting this project on hold temporarily. Like, not completely on hold. I do still plan on adding the ingredient dispensers up above, making a cool light show, so that, you know, when you click a certain potion, you can look up and, you know, watch like a spiral of light go all the way up the top while the ingredients get dispensed. And so I'll still have to put in a couple of doors as well, put in some test subjects and test subject call mechanisms and a whole bunch of stuff. Lots and lots of work still to do with this project. So that's my phone running low on battery. How'd you get down here? Seriously, that... Oh wait, yep, I see. We'll plug that one up because we don't want any more escaping, because he's going to be a pain in the butthole as it is. There we go. Yeah, so I will still be sporadically working on this project, but for now I want to move on to another main project, and I want to do it on a completely different floor on the, or in the facility. I want to at least have a lab on each level, so that each level feels like it's kind of useful. At the moment we've got nothing on the engineering level. We've got our spawn point lab up on the biology level and, the potions lab down below. So I think this is the level that we're going to be working on. Now, my plans for the lab that we'll be having in the engineering level here, it's going to be quite a large test lab. It's more going to be like a warehouse or I don't know, engineering bay for ideas. That way I can start working down here with like creating projects or creating inventions and stuff, as opposed to working up in the what I'm sort of calling the graveyard or the boneyard up here. Because I mean, although it kind of looks cool looking out over the facility and seeing all these little projects scattered around, it's starting to make the surface look pretty messy, and that's not the look that I want to have for Black Aperture. So I want to move all of that stuff up there. Is that snow? I'm going to have to patch one of those glass blocks. I want to move all of that stuff down here into an engineering lab, I guess, for the lack of a better term, which will have like an absolute crap ton of engineering bays from bedrock all the way up to the top level of the facility. And so I'm thinking of doing that on this back wall here. I can't really do it on this wall here because we've got the potions lab down below. I can't do it on this wall here because we've got the spawning lab up above, and I don't want to do it on this wall here simply because this wall is shorter than this wall, meaning that if I go with this wall, I have a lot more space for the engineering department here. So this is where we're going to start our new project, and this is... I haven't started work on this yet, but I want to just quickly give you guys an idea of where I'm headed, and this is what we'll be covering in the next episode. I plan on working on this a fair bit between the next episode and now, and my basic idea is that I want a place where we can walk through some doors here into like a little lobby. There'll be a rail line in or adjoining the lobby area, and then we jump into that minecart, and the minecart will take us out to the engineering bays into an elevator, which will elevate us to the correct floor, which will then shuttle us along a minecart line to the various engineering bays. And the engineering bays are going to be essentially just free-floating platforms with like a railing around the outside so I don't fall off. And I also plan on doing some other kind of cool redstone stuff with the engineering bays themselves, just for when we get updates happening and certain designs break. I want to be able to quickly test designs to see if they work or not, and if they work or not, I want to have the engineering bay automatically update to display whether or not the design works. And that way, every time we have an update, I can simply run through all the inventions in the engineering bay, test them all, and we get a clear, accurate assessment of what works and what doesn't. So that's where I'm planning on going with the facility at the moment, guys. I hope you're as excited for the plans as I am. Before we finish up the episode, I just wanted to really quickly cover an idea I had for kind of a creativity contest for the next episode. I want to have more characters in the facility. At the moment, we've only got, if I get out the spawn eggs, our lab geeks. So there's our lab geek there. So we've still got the butcher that we can use, the blacksmith, the librarian, I think this guy is. And that guy's a farmer, and then we've also got the priest. So we've got a few characters that we can mess around with. So what I want from you guys in the comments down below or through private messages or whatever, guys, if you're good at making texture packs or skins, come up with a new character for Black Aperture, make a skin and send it in to me, or make a suggestion for a skin and I'll have a crack at making it myself. Or if you make the suggestion in the comments, someone who is good at making skins might have a crack at that as well. And essentially the best skin or skins for the villagers that I get suggested between now and the next episode, they will be featured, or that skin will be featured in the next episode. I'll find some way of fitting them into the facility somewhere, and we will reuse that character over and over again. And I might even put a specialized version of that character somewhere in the facility with like an office or something and your name on it. So you will essentially be one of the lab geeks in Black Aperture. So with that being said, guys, that is the end of today's episode. I'm going to go out and assume I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please feel free to show that like button some love. As always, let me know what you feel about all of the different things I've shown you in the episode. So what you think about the design there, the floors, the colors for the corners, the potions lab, the villages, all that kind of jazz. I really want to know what you guys think, because it really sort of helps me clear my head with certain things that I'm not really 100% sure on. And one last little teaser for the end of the episode, guys. If you're wondering what that project was that I was hinting at before, that's a new day-night weather sensor that I'm working on at the moment. I believe it'll be the most compact and most versatile, most sensitive. It's technically a weather day-night sensor array, not just a weather day-night sensor. But I'll probably have a showcase video about that up shortly, maybe in the next couple of days once I get it all working, and then a tutorial not far off if everyone, or if people are interested. So that's enough of my rambling for today, guys. If you did enjoy today's episode, as always, please do show that like button some love. It helps me out more than you can imagine. I've been Static, and I will catch you guys next time. What's going on, guys and girls? Static here, and welcome back to Black Aperture, where I've been extremely busy over the last couple of days. You might be able to see just down there a few new little experiments that I've been doing. If you follow me on Facebook, you've probably heard about what's going on down there. I won't get into too much detail with that today, because the project's still a little bit unfinished, and I don't want to give anything away just yet, aside from what I've already given away on Facebook, of course. As you can see over here, I've redesigned the pattern that I had for the floor idea. I got to thinking what other blocks were non-spawnable, and straight away I thought of pistons. And the great thing about pistons, as you can see here, is they've got multiple surfaces. Using MC Edit like that will just copy and paste just the way that the pistons are here, and thus turn them into like a bud mechanism kind of thing, stop them from extending. I'm hoping it's the latter, but once I've decided whether or not I'm completely happy with this design, I guess I'll just jump in head first and see what happens. Now, to see the rest of the work that I've done on Black Aperture since the last episode, we can go over to this little viewing hole that I've set up really quickly. I worked on, as I was mentioning, as I said I was going to in the last episode, I worked on expanding the core, and I've worked on wrapping those hallways around where the core will be, and I think it looks really good, as you can see down here. One of the things I'm trying to achieve with Black Aperture, which is something that I think is kind of unique, that not many people have done, but that's going to be quite a challenge, is design. The old design with the ice had the issue that once I got too close to the wall here, the ice started melting. Obviously I don't have that issue, but as you can see, I've got the redstone lamps in the surface of the pattern, and I think that'll be cool for lighting up the entire surface of Black Aperture. But those need to be powered somehow, and that means that these pistons also get powered. Now, for most of them, it's not really an issue, but when you get to here, for example, like where this piston is, I think it's this one, or wait, here's a good example, I think. No. Alright, I'll find one eventually. This one here, okay. So this one here is facing this way. As you can see, there's less than 16 blocks from that piston to the side here. And that piston is also right next to one of these redstone lamps, which I'm powering. No matter how I power that redstone lamp, that's always going to power this piston that you can use. For example, here we've used the bottom of the piston, here we've used the top of the piston, and here we've used a side-on piston to give what I think is quite a cool looking pattern. I think this is a lot easier on the eyes than the ice and bedrock combination. A lot of people were complaining about the bedrock in the design, so I think this is a much sleeker version of the design. Goes well with the wall as well. Goes well with the vision that I've got in my head for the Black Aperture building above ground. So I think this is probably what we're going to go with as the floor for Black Aperture, or the surface for Black Aperture, I should say. The only reason I haven't expanded it out yet for the entire surface is I'm just trying it on for now, just seeing how it looks. Every time I come onto the server with fresh eyes, I sort of have a look at the thing and try and weigh it up, see whether I like it or not. One issue with this piston here, which will cause it to extend, which will shift the entire pattern and screw it up for me. Now, the only way that I've managed to, or at the moment, to get these to not push the whole pattern along or not extend is by simply putting extended pistons here and then powering this redstone lamp, and then that means that this piston can't push forward since pistons can't push extended pistons, if that makes sense at all. I know I used the word piston about 100 times then, but so yeah, there's a little bit of difficulty with this design. I'm not really sure what's going to happen if I use MC Edit to copy paste this design across the entire surface of Black Aperture. I'm not sure if those pistons are going to then update and destroy things, or mean that I've got to redo the entire border and the parts of the pattern that screw up, or if